For this back strengthening practice, we'll come down onto hands and knees, bringing the knees underneath the hips and the wrists underneath the shoulders into a tabletop position. If your knees are sensitive here, you might want to add a little extra cushion by tucking a folded towel or pillow under your knees. If the wrists are sensitive here, you might add a little cushion to the heels of the hands. Or you might even explore using the elbows on the floor underneath the shoulders as your variation. As we take our next natural breath in, we're going to extend the sternum and the tail in two directions, lengthening through the front body. And as we exhale, we're going to tuck the tail slightly and roll the hips back in the direction of the heels. Breathe in, coming back up onto all fours, lengthening the sternum and tail in two directions as we extend through the front body. And then exhale, tuck the pelvis and roll the hips back towards your feet. Inhale again, coming back up onto all fours, lengthening through the front body. And exhale, tuck the tail a bit and roll the hips back towards your feet. Feel free to continue this for a few more breaths. Finding that balance point between the length of breath and the length of movement. And the quality of your attention. Now, the next time you find yourself up on all fours, you can lower down onto your belly, coming to rest on the front body, and bring the hands up underneath the head, palms stacked. And you can either rest your forehead or rest one cheek on your stacked palms. And we'll just pause here for a moment and notice how the breath changes when it's supported by the earth. If you're resting on one cheek, please feel free to spend a couple of breaths resting on the other cheek. And now we'll lift up onto the forearms. So the elbows will now be underneath the shoulders. The forearms are in front of us and parallel with each other. Palms touching the floor and fingertips pointing towards the top of your mat. Now energize down through your legs. Maybe even pressing gently into the tops of your feet. And then bring attention now back up into the shoulders. Begin to shrug the shoulders back and down away from the ears. And then we'll come into the very base of the spine, the tailbone. And begin to slightly tuck the tailbone now between the legs. And press the pubic bone down into the floor so you have a pivot point. From here, we're going to begin to lengthen each vertebra up and off of its neighbor, coming up through the low back and the mid back, through the upper back, through the spine and the neck, and out through the crown of the head. Now see if you can balance the amount of effort, the amount of energy that you're using in the upper body with how much energy or effort you're using in the lower body. letting the breath stay easy. And if you'd like to add a little more challenge, then you might explore isometrically pulling the floor towards you with your forearms. And just notice what enlivens in the back. Now let your elbows go out to the sides. Pull the floor towards you with your hands as you lower back to rest on the ground. Interested in where the breath travels after the back bend. How does it relate to the form? Now bring the hands back by the hips, palms touching the ground. Forehead will rest on the floor. Again, we'll energize down through the legs. Maybe pressing the tops of the feet down into the floor. The knees might lift a bit. And rooting now into the face of the pelvis, into the pubic bone and the front-facing hip bones as they step down towards the floor. Shrug the shoulders back and down away from the ears. And with the next inhalation, lift the chest, the shoulders, and the head away from the floor. And with the exhalation, soften just a bit. Breathing in, feel the chest, the shoulders, the head lift a tad higher. Breathing out and softening a bit. So letting the chin stay slightly tucked in towards the throat. And give yourself the opportunity here to really ride the wave of breath. To feel how the breath creates buoyancy and lifts us a little higher on the inhalation. How there's a slight deflation as we exhale. So rather than overpowering the posture, always let breath be present and felt and known. As you're ready, relax all the way back down to the floor. Bring your hands up for support under the head if you'd like. Becoming really intimate with the release, the undoing. Now bring the hands back by the hips one more time, palms facing the floor, forehead resting on the ground. Create that pivot point, again in the face of the pelvis, pubic bone, front-facing hip bones, grounding. Energize down through your legs. Lengthen up through your spine. And again, a slight shrugging back and down of the shoulders can be helpful. This time, on an inhalation, lengthen and lift the chest, the shoulders, the head, the arms, and the legs. Everything comes off the floor but the pelvis. And as we exhale, just soften a bit. So the dance here is similar. Can you feel that slight lifting on the in-breath? And that slight dropping on the out breath. Protecting the neck by keeping the chin tucked slightly in towards the throat. And if you'd like to challenge the arms just a bit, you might explore lifting them a bit higher, palms still looking at the ground. And when you're ready, coming back to rest on the floor. Staying here, awake, present. So we'll roll the body now over onto the back, extending one arm up by your ear, place the other hand on the floor by your ribs, and then just log roll yourself over onto your back. When you get there, bend the knees, feet resting on the floor, and then just see if you can sense how the body is now in a different relationship to gravity. Maybe becoming aware of those subtle shifts, those readjustments the body is making. Now tuck your upper arms in towards your ribs. Bend the elbows, palms looking at each other, fingertips pointing towards the ceiling. Now just practice pressing your upper arms straight down into the floor and feel how the upper back begins to enliven. And you can relax that movement. And then once again, press the upper arms down into the floor. Feel the upper back enliven. And then let that go. This time, lengthen your tailbone slightly towards your heels. Press into the soles of the feet and begin to lift the pelvis up towards the ceiling, lifting as high as is comfortable. Pressing the upper arms down into the ground to help support the lift of the upper back. Keeping the thighs on parallel lines. And allow there to be a little pillow of air behind your neck. So not tucking your chin too deep in towards your throat, or pointing it straight up towards the ceiling. Keeping it best you can in a neutral position. Allow the breath to be easy. And when you're ready, begin to lower the hips back to the floor, lengthening slightly through the tail as you do. And as the pelvis comes to rest on the floor, feel free to bring your knees, both knees or one knee at a time, up into the chest, giving yourself a sweet hug. And see if you can feel the effects of breath down around the tailbone. Can you feel the effects of breath in the love handles? Can you feel the effects of breath behind the heart? In the back of the throat? And the crown of the head.